messenger on the line. Good morning, good afternoon, possibly good evening, depending upon where you are all calling in from. On behalf of Mackerel International, with my co-moderator from Uganda, Horace, we want to first of all thank each and every one of you for taking the time to call in and listen to what I think is going to be a very, very interesting webinar on doing business in Africa. Before we get started, I just want to take a minute or two to tell you about Mackerel International. Many of you may know about the various law firms connected with Mackerel International, but may not know what Mackerel International is. I can tell you it's not a fish store, nor do we sell any type of seafood, but we are a legal network that consists of lawyers from all over the world. The organization is now celebrating its 30th anniversary. We had our anniversary at the annual general meeting in Chile this year, and we're very proud of the fact that we've been doing business as lawyers in a network for the last 30 years. We are Chambers rated, and as you can see on this slide, we have over 4,500 lawyers collectively. We are independent law firms, so though we have over 90 law firms in the network, we are all independently run. But of course today we are coming together, particularly with a focus on doing business in Africa, and we are sitting in a room, thankfully an air-conditioned room, but outside it is a mere 110 degrees Fahrenheit in Dubai, and that's because we are having our Mackerel International regional meeting with the African and Middle Eastern delegates. And I am surrounded with a very smart group of individuals from various countries in Africa who you're going to be hearing a lot more from in a few minutes. Again, I just wanted to finish off by letting you know that each one of these lawyers are members of the Mackerel Network. While we have limited time today, roughly about an hour, and then we're going to have a Q&A of about 15 minutes, these lawyers, again, since they are part of the Mackerel Network, will be available, so you can always reach out to them. The contact information for each of their firms and the individuals will be incorporated in the presentation. And you can also go on the Mackerel International website. The practice groups I just wanted to highlight is basically the various groups within the network, and at this point we have roughly 20 practice groups. And what's very nice about these practice groups is that, as you can see on this slide, we have different areas of expertise, and of course it's global in nature. So if you take, for example, our family law practice group, we have the Mackerel lawyers from all parts of the world who come together and share expertise, referrals, etc., in the area of family law and all the other practice group areas. So it's very much run almost like a bar association would in terms of practice groups. So as I said, I will be co-moderating with my colleague from Uganda, and I'd like to turn over the microphone, if you will, to Paul, who is going to briefly introduce what's happening in Africa and his colleagues in that part of the world. Paul?
Thanks, David. Welcome everyone to the first ever Doing Business in Africa webinar hosted by Mackerel International. My name, as David said, is Paul Rutisia. I am from Uganda, and I'm the African representative on the International Committee of Mackerel International. Today we have representatives from 7 African countries, that is Ghana, Uganda, South Africa, Burundi, Nigeria, Algeria, and finally Kenya. These presenters are all very excited about showcasing both their law firms and the countries that they represent. And without further ado, I want to get right into it and hand over first to the presenter from Ghana, who will introduce himself and take us on from there.
Hello everyone, my name is Kojo Jesse Ntrakwa. I'm a partner at the Ghanaian law firm of Ntrakwa & Co. So Ghana was the first country in sub-Saharan Africa to gain independence. It gained its independence on 6 March 1957. We are considered to be one of the most stable, peaceful, and democratic countries in Africa, having had 5 consecutive free and fair elections, and 4 changes of government over the last 20 years. The currency unit in Ghana is called the Ghana cedi, and the word cedi comes from a local word meaning a cowrie shell. Cowrie shells from sea snails were once used as a legal tender years ago in Ghana. We have a population of 25.5 million people. English is the official business language and widely spoken. We are the world's second biggest cocoa producer, Africa's second biggest gold exporter, and one of the continent's newest oil and gas producers. A new president was also sworn in January 2017, and the new government so far appears very business friendly. They have set up a new ministry for business development, which seems to be making the right noises in Ghana. I'll turn to the business opportunities that are available. The flagship programs of the new government are as follows: the One District, One Factory policy, the development of the railway sector, and the One Village, One Dam policy. Under the One District, One Factory policy, the government is looking to industrialize Ghana and set up factories in every district. They are also looking to develop the railway sector, which is virtually non-existent at the moment. With the One Village, One Dam, they are also looking to construct dams in the northern regions of Ghana for irrigational purposes. Apart from the flagship programs, there are also other business opportunities in a wide range of sectors, notably agriculture and fishery. Here, there are opportunities available for producers and processing companies in various crops for national, regional, and European markets, irrigational facilities, technology, and support services. With water and sanitation, there's the extension of water and sanitation coverage and the rehabilitation and maintenance of existing infrastructure. Companies are invited to provide point sources, that is boreholes or hand-dug wells. Construction is another big sector with opportunity. There's the construction of residential houses, low-cost housing, high-rise quality apartments, retirement villages, industrial warehouses, commercial houses, office accommodation, and among others. With tourism, the areas to focus also include the construction and provision of services for multi-hotel resorts, Lake River Resort, development and establishment of eco-tourism packages. With oil and gas, opportunities exist in virtually every sector of the petroleum industry, both upstream and downstream. Opportunities also exist in the development of the port town of Takoradi, the logistical center for oil and gas activities in Ghana. Roads and transport, where we have mass transportation opportunities, which include lake transport systems, airport expansion, air transport for domestic and sub-regional services. Despite these opportunities, there are also challenges. And the main challenge has to do with bureaucracy. Ghana has a low ranking of 108 in the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Guide. It takes about 10 working days to set up a company in Ghana. There are also regulatory restrictions as another challenge. For example, under Ghana's Investment Promotion Center Act, a foreigner must invest a minimum of $500,000 in cash or capital goods if the foreigner is to operate a wholly owned foreign company in Ghana. Another regulatory restriction is the fact that the foreigner cannot have a freehold interest in land. A foreigner's interest in land is limited to only 50 years maximum. As a country, we are mindful of these challenges and everything is being done to sort it out. A new companies bill is being considered. There's also the amendment of the current Companies Act to allow for online registration of companies and keeping of statutory books electronically. We also have the GIPC Act, and the current debate now is the amendment of that act to do away with the minimum capital requirement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for that. Our next presenter shall be Diana and Joy from Uganda. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end of all the presentations, where you'll be welcome to send in your questions to the individual presenters or to them as a group, and we'll be happy to answer your questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, hello. My name is Joy Faida. I'm a senior associate from Kasirye, Byaruhanga, and company advocate. Together with my colleague, Nabuuso, who is also a senior associate, we will make a short presentation entitled Business and Investment in Uganda, Opportunities and Challenges. But first, I will tell you briefly about our law firm. Our firm is called Kasirye, Byaruhanga, and Company Advocate. It's a medium-sized commercial law firm, one of the leading law firms in Uganda. It's been in existence for over 20 years now. We are very proud members of Mackerel International. From the year 2012, we've been members. And we are also proud to have one of our partners serving currently as the Attorney General of Uganda. That's Mr. William Byaruhanga. That's briefly about our law firm. Now I'll hand over to my colleague Diana, who will tell you briefly about our country, Uganda, and also the business opportunities that are available.
Thank you once again, and good evening all. Uganda is located in East Africa, along the equator, and it has one of the best climates in the world, and it's one of the leading tourism destinations, as Lonely Planet has reported. Uganda was also recently projected as the lead and one of the fastest growing economies in 2017 by the Harvard Center for International Development. Uganda is one of the largest growing populations in the world, and with 70% of that population are people below 30 years. Uganda is gifted by nature, lots of rivers, lakes, mountains, and that's why it's considered one of the best tourist countries to visit. And Uganda is signed up to so many treaties and business blocks in the world, and it's an open market to the world as well. I'll take you through some of the business and investment opportunities as a country. First and foremost, the government set up Uganda Investment Authority, an authority that can accommodate all investors. And it's a one-stop center where you can register your business within one day. 24 hours you can have your business registered. Uganda Revenue Authority, the tax body, will register you for taxes. You can, even for expatriates that you may want to run your business or investment in Uganda, will be granted a work permit in that same authority. So this was set up by government to facilitate investment for all foreign nationals that may want to invest in the country. Government has also issued or continues to issue incentives to investors, especially multi-million-dollar investors, like giving them tax holidays. Most of the investors are given 10-year tax holidays where you don't pay most of the basic taxes. And also government has created a forum where they issue free land to investors. for a certain period of time, which is more than 50 years, as long as your investment is legit. And this is common with all big investors. And opportunities in Uganda are in agriculture. Uganda is a food basket within the East African region and surrounding areas because of the conducive environment and fertile soils. It supplies food to Southern Sudan, Kenya, Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, and all surrounding countries. But this is done on a small scale. So opportunities are available in agriculture for any investor that may want to set up big agricultural projects and export or process and in agribusiness. Oil and gas. A few years ago, Uganda discovered 2 billion barrels of oil in the western region of the country. So investment opportunities exist in oil exploration, setting up the pipeline, and support services for the oil and gas industry. And so many international, multinational companies have benefited out of those investments, but still opportunities are still available. Uganda also, as I mentioned earlier, is a top destination country in the world, but the opportunities in the hospitality industry, because the hotels are not enough. It's a small country, and the hotels cannot accommodate the demand that tourists have put upon the country. So that's an opportunity for investors to venture into that area. Mining is also another lucrative industry. Uganda has discovered 80% of the mineral deposits have been surveyed, and it has been discovered that Uganda has large quantities of gold, cobalt, tin, salt, wolfram. So, and these have not been exploited on a large scale. Mining is done also on a small scale, so such opportunities are available. Other opportunities are in renewable energy and infrastructure. Uganda doesn't have a very developed infrastructure sector, so the opportunities are available in that area. I'll hand over to my colleague to conclude.
Now, just a few factors you want to take note of while coming to Uganda to do business, things that may affect doing business in Uganda. We have the issue of poor infrastructure, as has been noted by my colleague. Among others, Uganda has a road network that is not very good. So this does affect business in many ways. During the rainy season, there are parts of Uganda that are not accessible. So whereas this is a challenge, also as pointed out, it presents a great potential for business. The other point you want to note is bureaucracy, a problem that is not unique to Uganda, and political interference in some of the administrative offices. This is definitely an issue that does affect doing business. And also the high rate of unemployment, and finally the land question. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Diana and Joy, for your presentation. Our next presenter is Shawn from South Africa, who will take us through similar facts and business opportunities in South Africa, and also any measures aimed at resolving state challenges. Shawn?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Paul. I'm Shawn from Heerden, the managing partner at Ramsay Attorneys in South Africa. Our firm is based in Sandton, Johannesburg. We are a medium-sized law firm, established in 1982. We act for various small and medium-sized and large clients locally and globally, all of which are considered as blue-chip clients in the local and international sphere. Ramsay Webber has been a member of Macro International in excess of 22 years. Why South Africa? Well, South Africa celebrates 23 years of democracy in 2017 and has become an important economy both on an African continent as well as globally over the last 2 decades. South Africa was rated by the World Bank as the second largest economy in Africa and one of the easiest and most stable economies in the sub-Saharan region. South Africa boasts a modern and sophisticated financial sector, which is ranked highly in the Global Competitive Report of the World Economic Forum. The Johannesburg Stock Exchange, or as the acronym JSE, is the country's security exchange and is currently the 19th largest stock exchange in the world and certainly the largest in Africa. Despite all that, South Africa does have its challenges. In recent weeks, South Africa has slipped into a technical recession, which was participated by our President Jacob Zuma's decision to reshuffle his cabinet, dismissing the finance minister, Provan Gordon, and his deputy, with the resultant perception being that this would probably be followed by a change in fiscal and monetary policy. How do we go forward by exhausting the opportunities we do have? While this admittedly does not inspire confidence in prospective investors, it bears mentioning that with the global ranking of 55, the country far outstrips the regional average, reiterating its position as a springboard for investment into the rest of the continent. The fact is that South Africa is part of the G20 and is ranked as one of the 5 major emerging economies, and that forms part of BRICS based testament to this. South Africa is a constitutional democracy and boasts a robust judicial system that is instrumental in promoting good governance and sustainable economic development, holding the government very accountable of late. Sophisticated and world-class banking and taxation regulation framework that provides certainty for prospective clients. Traditionally, South Africa was rooted in primary sectors. It is, however, now moving towards becoming a knowledge-based economy with a greater focus on technology, e-commerce, and the financial and other services. This sector expansion makes for attractive investment diversification opportunities. Because of South Africa's unique history, diversity, geography, political and institutional landscape, the business environment, including the social, economic and legal and political, is complex. For instance, a firm entering into South Africa with the aim of using it as a platform to do business in Africa needs to understand that it will have to confront the country's apartheid legacy and the country's attempt to overcome that legacy. Managers in Africa therefore need to contend with challenges that may be foreign to outsiders. There is a sense of social responsibility that goes hand in hand with the leadership in Africa. From a corporate point of view, all companies in South Africa are regulated in terms of the Companies Act 71 of 2008. It is a modernized, comprehensive revision of the South Africa's company laws, bringing it in line with the leading international practices. There are a number of different business entities available in South Africa, which include private and public companies. The Act however, sets out 2 ways for foreign companies to establish a local presence in South Africa, either by forming a wholly owned limited company or registering a branch office. So, while the current political and economical climate might be less than ideal, it's in times like these that investors need to hold on to the diversified and long-term investment strategies, as long-term markets have the ability to return. However, it is necessary to be creative and innovative and understand the peculiarities of cultural influences. This marks the importance and urgent need for lawyers, in this context, South African lawyers to have an intimate understanding and knowledge of not only how the law works, but the business and the cultural nuances of each business industry. We invite you to contact us and leave the law and commercial guidance to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shawn, for that presentation. Now we have another presenter from East Africa, Horace from Burundi, which is a country located, well, I'll let him talk more about the country, but it's a country located just in between Tanzania and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Very welcome, Horace.
Thank you very much, Paul, and good afternoon, everybody. As Paul was saying, my name is Horace. I'm coming from Burundi, and it's one of the countries which is in the East African region. Burundi is the country which is then situated in the East African region, and it was independent in 1962, colonized by Belgium, and it's a French-speaking country, but which is striving so that it became part of the East African community and speak English. So Burundi has run like more than 30 years of civil war. It's a country which is beautiful for business opportunities. If I can talk about a little bit about business opportunities, there is one focus about doing business in Burundi. We have one-stop shop department for registering companies. So my friend that speak before me was saying that it takes like 10 days so that they can register companies in their country. For mine, you have 24 hours so that you can also register yours. And we have also an IP registration for people and factories that need to protect their IP. As you know, one of the ways to protect your intellectual property is to register it. As a member of the East African community, it's easy to get access to the whole region as market. Once you establish one country, you can get easily to other countries. And there is also possibility of remittance. So one of the challenges that we can talk about here is one, we can talk about the language barrier. As I was saying, we were colonized by Belgium, and right now the country is the French and English. It's a second language official. It's third official language because the French was the first one. So right now there's been an enactment of a new act stating that English is an official language also. The second one is civil law. So for civil law, coming from a background of people from Belgium, we are practicing in civil law. For many corporate or many other African countries which are neighbor to Burundi, they are practicing in common law. But we are striving so that we can have a common practice, a common ground of practice in civil and common law. The other problem that we got with the companies coming from outside is immigration. So it's not easy. It's easy to get an establishment visa for somebody who is establishing his business, because they provide you an establishment visa for only the chairman or the owner. But for the other guys or the other people that are helping him, that is very difficult for them to get an immigration visa. And once you got the establishment visa, and then you want to get out and come back, you have to pay another visa named entry and exit entry visa for $30. So for companies who are establishing themselves in Burundi, it's not as easy to understand that once they got an establishment visa, they have to pay once they got out and once they got in. And I can talk about a little bit measures aimed at resolving challenges. There is an enactment of new act legalizing the English as official language. I have already talked about it. There is also another act that is providing a new structure of the hierarchy of the court. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity and for following.
Thank you very much, Horace, for that inspiring presentation. Our next presenter is from Nigeria. Nigeria, as many of you know, is located in West Africa. Ifeoma works in the law firm in Nigeria and shall briefly tell us about the country and her law firm.
Thank you, Paul. My name is Ifeoma Okeke. I'm a senior associate at Giwa-Osagie & Co. Giwa-Osagie & Co. is a full-fledged law firm located in Lagos, and we also have an office in Abuja. We have departments. We have a education department as well as a corporate and commercial department. Now, I'll talk about Nigeria. Nigeria has a population of about 190 people, which easily makes it the largest market in Africa. The country is blessed with some of the richest natural resources, agricultural production in the world, and has about 44 commercially viable solid minerals scattered all over the 36 states of the Federation. Some of these minerals are coal, columbite, and we have gold, lead, amongst others. Nigeria also has abundant human capital. The workforce in Nigeria is one of the most competitive. We have a young and dynamic population of about 70 million people between the ages of 15 to 35 years. Oil and gas. Crude oil exportation is a major source of foreign exchange earning in Nigeria. It forms about 90% of our foreign exchange earnings. Nigeria offers one of the most rewarding investment returns both in Africa and the world. There are numerous investment opportunities in Nigeria. The agricultural sector is one of the most viable sectors in Nigeria. Nigeria is blessed with a favorable climate, fertile land, and abundant water resources. The agricultural sector is one of the most important sources of foreign earnings for Nigeria. There's also investment opportunities in the Nigerian power sector. We also have investment opportunities in the mining sector. As I said earlier, Nigeria is blessed with about 44 commercially viable solid minerals, and so there are a lot of opportunities in this sector. We also have investment opportunities in the healthcare sector. There's a ready market in Nigeria seeking high-quality medical healthcare. Approximately 30,000 Nigerians spend about $1 billion on medical tourism annually. So it would be good if we could have investors coming to Nigeria to develop this sector so that we don't have most Nigerians leaving the country seeking for medical attention. Other sectors are information and communication, automotive sector, business processing operations, oil and gas sector, both in the upstream and downstream sector. A foreigner wanting to establish in Nigeria would need to register a separate entity for purpose of that business and would require a minimum share capital of 10 million naira. This share capital is required because for you to apply for, you will need to apply for business permits, expatriate quotas, and other permits to be able to operate in Nigeria. So, and the minimum share capital for such permits is 10 million share capital. Nigerian government has recently introduced new reforms with the aim of improving Nigeria's ranking in the global ease of doing business. Previously, it would take about 10 days to register a business in Nigeria, but now within 3 days, you could register a business in Nigeria, and the registration process is now done online. All you need to do is to upload all your documentation, and you can collect certificate of incorporation at any location. Any of the corporate affairs office is in Nigeria. There have also been some reforms in the immigration regulations. We introduced a new immigration rule which allows issuance of visa on arrival at the point of entry. Some of the challenges of doing business. So before I said, I would also want to mention that Nigeria allows foreigners to own 100% shares in the company, and also has a lot of tax exemptions and incentives. There are tax holidays, which are about 5 years tax holidays, which in certain industries, in certain sectors in Nigeria. Some of the challenges facing the Nigerian business environment are infrastructural development, corruption and lack of transparency of government agencies, security issues. We've been having security issues in the northeast part of Nigeria, the Boko Haram factor, and the south part of Nigeria, where we're having some militants which has affected crude oil production in that sector. Also, Nigeria has been in a recession recently. This is due to the fall in oil prices and the depletion of the country's reserves. Inflation rate rose from single digits since 2014 to a double digit of 1.83% in Q4 of 2016. There also had the issue of restrictions on foreign exchange, which made it difficult for investors to have access to foreign exchange in the country. Also, the issue of slow judicial process. It takes a long time for matters to be resolved by court. However, most investors opt for arbitration, which is a more faster process. Despite these challenges, Nigeria is still an ideal environment for investment. The Nigerian government is making a lot of efforts to improve the economy and improve the business environment. In April 2017, the government launched the Economic Recovery Growth Plan, which is a medium-term plan on economic growth. The focus is on reviving the economy on all aspects. The RPG focuses on improving the business environment and creating business-friendly economy. The Minister of Finance has recently announced that the economy is already recovering from the recession. Inflation rate as of May 2017 was at 16.25% compared to 17.25% in April 2017. The Central Bank of Nigeria has also relaxed its foreign exchange policy to create easier access to foreign exchange. This has reduced the pressure on importation of raw materials, honoring of letters of credit, and importation of petroleum products. In respect to corruption, the government is making efforts towards fighting corruption in Nigeria. The government recently introduced a whistleblowing policy, which encourages individuals to provide useful information on violation of government financial regulations, misappropriation of public funds, collection of bribes, among other related issues. Also, one of the recent reforms of the federal government of Nigeria on the ease of doing business is to ensure transparency of government agencies. In respect to the security issues are being addressed aggressively by the government. The insurgencies witnessed in the northeastern part and uprisings by the Niger Delta militants have been tackled. In February 2017, the acting president visited the south-south part of Nigeria and entered into negotiations talks with the militants, and since then we've not had any such violent attacks. In respect to the Boko Haram, the Nigerian army is making frantic efforts in flushing out Boko Haram members from the northeast. Nigeria, the current administration is focused on improving the economy and creating an ideal environment for investment. We, Giwa-Osagie and Co., are available to guide you through setting up a business in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. One thing that I got from it is that Nigeria allows 100% foreign ownership in companies, which is something that can definitely be attractive to potential foreign investors. Our last presenters come from, again, the East African Republic of Kenya. They are from the law firm of Daly and Inamdar. They are Harpreet and Shitul.
Hello everyone. My name is Shitul Shah. I'm a partner in the Daly and Inamdar Advocates. I am a Kenyan advocate, an English solicitor, and a New York attorney. I propose to split this session in two parts. I'll talk about Kenya. My colleague will talk about the law firm. I think most of you will have heard of the country Kenya, because of the athletics and all that. We are an English common law country with a population of 45 million. We are the economic, financial, and transport powerhouse of East Africa. We are the regional hub. We have a fully liberalized economy. There are no exchange controls. We've done away with most trade licenses. We have a growing middle-class population and a very highly skilled workforce. We have most of the airlines, international airlines and hotels in Kenya. We have British Airways, Emirates, Etihad, all having their daily flights in and out of Nairobi, the Kenyan capital. Our currency is the Kenyan shilling. It is about 100 shillings to a US dollar. We were ranked 92nd in the World Bank Doing Business 2017 guide and the third most improved economy in the world. We have a very strong manufacturing, financial services, tourism and agricultural sector with most international businesses already represented in Kenya. Our challenges are, as in line with other African countries, the main challenges are corruption and governance. We have elections coming up next month, 2018, and hopefully after that, things should pick up in Kenya. We have recently adopted the English Companies Act 2006, the UK 2006 Companies Act, which has been adopted in Kenya very recently, which offers a very simpler way of doing business in Kenya. We have a strong independent judiciary, and hopefully they have been enforcing the rule of law in Kenya. I'll just hand over to my colleague Harpreet Ubhi, who will speak about our law firm. Thank you.
Hello everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Harpreet Ubhi, and I am a partner with Daly and Inamdar, and I'll tell you briefly, who are we? Well, Daly and Inamdar is an amalgamation of two of Kenya's oldest and most reputable legal firms, Daly and Figgis, which was actually the first law firm in Kenya, established in 1899, and Inamdar and Inamdar, which was established in 1926. And together, Daly and Inamdar forms a high-end boutique law firm based in Nairobi, the Kenyan capital, and we advise on all aspects of corporate, commercial, property, litigation, and arbitration. So we are a full-service law firm. We are also one of the top 5 law firms in the country and rated in Chambers Global. I hope that's given you a little bit of background, and we have some contact details at the end which will be shared.
Well, thank you. This is David Ettinger again. We've gone through parts of Africa, taking us probably around 7 countries or so out of the approximately, I think, 54 countries. It's quite a geographic region, but hopefully there's been a sampling of some of these countries and what's going on there. We're going to turn now to some questions. I happen to be, some of you on the phone may know, a food and drug lawyer specializing in the area of food and food safety. And one of the things that surprised me last summer was the headline news that Starbucks opened up its first coffee shop, if you put aside Egypt and Morocco, up in northern Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, in Cape Town, I believe. And as a food lawyer, I was very struck by that because I just naturally assumed that Starbucks was in all countries all over the world. And I think they're, as of last summer, in over 60 countries, but they had not been in Africa up until they opened up their first shop. I practiced out of the office in Shanghai, and Starbucks opened its first coffee shop in Beijing in 1999 when no one thought they had a chance to compete with tea. And here they are some 17, 18 years later with over 2,000 stores of Starbucks. So that's the long way of me saying that I'm very curious to hear from our colleague in Cape Town, Shawn, in terms of having his first cup of Starbucks coffee last summer. what that experience is like. But more seriously, when you hear about companies like Starbucks, you can put aside some of the big multinationals, some of the chemical and oil companies who have been in parts of Africa for many decades. But when you start to read about companies that are more popular to consumers, whether it be a Starbucks, whether it be a Domino's, Pizza Hut, etc., can you tell us, Shawn, and others who want to chime in on this, what the impact has been? Has it been successful for a company like Starbucks or companies like that? And how are consumers adjusting to that? And where do you see the future for those types of companies in Africa?
Thank you, David. Certainly, the introduction of Starbucks into South Africa has been very exciting, in that it has made people that are unable to get to Starbucks internationally to get their cup of coffee in South Africa. Furthermore, we have Dunkin' Donuts that came to South Africa shortly after Starbucks. And from a consumer's point of view, people are excited about things that come specifically from the States. And I personally saw the queues that were outside Starbucks and still remain outside on a weekly basis in the branch where it started, the branch in the Mall of Africa, which is the biggest mall in South Africa, and I believe the southern hemisphere, in fact, the southern part of Africa, that was introduced last year in around May. I hope I've answered the question.
Do you think those trends will continue then, Shawn? Will you start to see more establishments like that, whether it be the food sector or otherwise, or is that something that you forecast?
I do believe that it will continue. We also had McDonald's been in the country for quite a while. We had Burger King introduced about 3 years ago, and similar trends. Consumers are excited about those kind of things coming to them in light of the fact that they can't go to it.
Okay, well, we do have a question, Paul, that came in, another one for South Africa.
Yes, we have a question, Shawn, about what efforts are being made to tackle or address the endemic problem of corruption in South Africa. As you have stated, corruption is not only unique to South Africa, it goes across the board, but what particular measures are being taken in South Africa to end this cancer of corruption?
Thank you, Paul. As I mentioned during my address, the one thing we do have is we have a very strong legal system, and I think if you have followed the news of late, our constitution and our legal system has been so powerful, even to the extent that it has had an effect on the leaders of the country. So certainly from a legal point of view, those, as you called it, sorry, what did you call it? You called something cancer. Well, yeah. Those kind of cancers are eroded with our powerful legal system that has proved to be very powerful of late.
Okay, thank you, Shawn. Another question has come in for Uganda. Diane or Joy, could you please expound more on the question of the land issue? You said that the land issue was a challenge in Uganda. Could you just tell us how exactly it is a challenge and what is being done to address that?
Regarding the land question in Uganda, I will tell you that land is a very sensitive issue in the country, and there are many issues surrounding the land question. However, I'll just address one of them. The government has taken a policy, a positive policy, I would say, whereby land is very often given to investors, foreign investors. And in cases like that, there are issues that arise with the local citizenry, especially when they are not compensated or when the compensation does not come in time. So that causes a bit of tension when it comes to the land issue. However, that said, we have a good law in place that provides for compulsory acquisition whenever there is need, when the government needs to, take over land and provide investors with land for investment. There's a good law in place, but perhaps the issue is the enforcement of that law. But like I said, issues arise when land is given to foreign investors and the locals are not well compensated. Perhaps briefly, the other issue is that there is insecurity of land tenure in many parts of the country. Landowners do not have certificates of title. So when transacting with foreigners, it becomes a bit of a problem. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Moving from Uganda, I think next door, pretty close, Kenya. We have a question on Kenya. Someone's asking about the fact that Kenya has several upcoming elections, I think next month as a matter of fact. Maybe first you could tell us about these elections. I don't know much about them, who they're for. We could talk a little bit about the U.S. elections if we have extra time, but that may not fit the theme, so I'll save that for its own separate webinar. But what do you think would be some of the implications for businesses with these upcoming elections?
Sure, I think that's a very good and important question. Yes, we have the general election coming up in August next month, literally about a couple of weeks away. We saw what happened back in 2007, 2008, about 10 years ago. A lot of fighting, which we are hoping will be avoided this time around. There has been a sort of slowdown in business activity, especially with the foreign direct investment. I think people are waiting to see what happens in August. So August is a very important time for Kenya and the region as well. Because what happens in Kenya will affect Uganda, it will affect Kenya, Tanzania, Burundi, and the rest of the East African countries. The good thing is most Kenyans, I think, learned the lesson 10 years ago and do not want to see a repeat of what happened back then. So we are hoping for a peaceful election time. Thank you.
We have a general question, so I'm going to put anyone on the spot who wants to answer this. But a general question about enforcement of contracts, and when there are contract disputes in your country, what's the typical, and I shouldn't be asking this question as a lawyer, but I'm paraphrasing, so I'm forced to ask it. What's the typical time frame to resolve a matter in court? And obviously that'll vary, but perhaps if someone could offer any comments or thoughts on some of the issues they're seeing in their country when it comes to contractual disputes. This individual also asked a question about outside of the courtrooms, is there an avenue for arbitration and mediation? And I think that's particularly of interest to the attendees in that we have many folks who are doing business in the U.S. or Europe and engaging in contracts with companies or individuals in Africa. So there's a general interest in terms of when things go wrong, how can we enforce that? How can they seek remediation? So again, opening this up to the floor, can anyone share any thoughts or comments on how the system may work in their country? You can do it right. We have...
So this is Kojo from Ghana again. Our courts are generally effective. It will take about a year to resolve such a dispute. I think the main issue is with enforcement. Once you've got a judgment, the challenge is how long it will take to enforce that judgment. Arbitration is also available, it's growing, it's getting bigger by the year.
Is there anyone any other comments? Yeah.
My name is Horace from Burundi. I would like to say that in my country there is an arbitration center that was provided for arbitration. But many internationals, when we are just advising them when they are creating like a contract between them and the one national of Burundi or maybe with the government, we give them advice so that they can make like a compromising clause in their contract stating that they're going to be an arbitration in outside of the country. Because most of the time this is regulated in our country that if you got like, if the government is involved and they got like conflict between the government, the international agency, or maybe a corporate, it's easy for them to get an arbitration outside of the country and outside of the country of origin of the corporate. So it's going to guarantee the justice and the enforcement of that justice. And one of the things that you mentioned was about the fact that the decision that has been taken maybe from outside of the country are they're going to be enforced in our country. So in our regulation, and I think it's in the Code of Persons and Families, there is, from Article 1 to 10, there is provisions about how enforcement of contracts coming from outside are regulated. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you too. The next question is directed towards Nigeria. There is a general apathy by investors and general concern by investors as to what happens when they invest significant sums of money and they want to take these funds out of the country. So the question that has come up is, what is the process of repatriation of proceeds from investment out of Nigeria?
This is from Okeke again. In Nigeria, are you allowed to repatriate 100% of the proceeds of investment out of Nigeria, net of all taxes? There are taxes you're expected to pay, like the company income tax. So after such taxes are paid, profits made can be fully repatriated out of Nigeria. You have to do that. You need to apply for a certificate of capital importation, which allows you to bring in funds into Nigeria, capital into Nigeria, and also repatriate the proceeds out of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next question is directed towards Kenya. And the question is, could you talk briefly on what are the reasons behind the third most improved economy in the world? What are the reasons behind being the third most improved economy in the world according to the World Bank report?
Sorry for the delay, ladies and gentlemen. Pause. We're doing sort of musical African chairs here, so they get close to the speaker. So our speaker from Kenya is now prepared to answer that.
Thank you for the question. I think there are four key, very important reasons for the ranking, for the good ranking that Kenya received. Number one is the ease of starting a business in Kenya. It's all gone digital now. It's all online. So you could incorporate a company theoretically in about 48 hours. Although in practice, that remains to be seen whether it will be effective or not. The second area was access to electricity and power. Third area was greater protection of minority interests in companies. And the fourth was new insolvency legislation. Like I spoke earlier, we saw the introduction of a new Companies Act, which is mainly modeled on the English Companies Act, and that has really taken away a lot of regulatory requirements from private companies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Our next question is to South Africa. The question reads as follows. Hello, I have a question in South Africa. I understand that when you start to develop your activity, you have to create a permanent establishment very quickly, either being a subsidiary or a branch. The question seems to relate to investment in Kenya, rather in South Africa, as to once you create an establishment,
once you develop your activity, you have to create a permanent establishment very quickly. Is that true or not?
I don't believe that is true. But whether it's true or not, we are able to create that presence very quickly. As my colleagues mentioned, within 1 or 2 hours, we can create that the presence in South Africa. So I'm not quite sure that is 100% correct, but the ability to do that is quite quickly, and we can do that quite quickly.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Shawn. I hope that answers the question.
So we have another question for Uganda, and I think this touches on one of the comments that was made during the Uganda presentation, which is the discovery of oil, the recent discovery of oil, and I understand quite a large amount. Paul, maybe you can take this one in terms of the impact that's having on the country and who's involved with those deals, if that's public information, and how you see this discovery changing or having an impact on Uganda.
Thanks for that. The discovery of oil, and like you rightly pointed out, David, the significant discovery of a couple of billion barrels of oil in Uganda has had a large impact on the country. Firstly, the government has to manage the expectations of the populace. It is quite a significant amount, and the amount of projected foreign exchange coming into the country is going to similarly be significant. We have set up some laws that are going to govern the flow and the management of oil once it becomes into production. Production should start in 2020. So in the next couple of years, we should have oil in Uganda. There are regulatory bodies that have been put in place. It's a national oil company and everything that goes with that. We also have had some laws that have been put in place. On the question of the players, we have the French firm Total in Uganda. We have the Chinese company Sinopec, and also Tallow Oil as well, yes. And we've seen quite a lot of movement in this area. Oil was discovered in western Uganda, so infrastructure is developing rapidly in that area. But I must point out that there's still virgin areas for investment in oil, and we're looking forward to having other players come on board in that sector. David, I think there's a question to the general question.
Yeah, there's a general question here. I'm not sure if it's going to be detailed enough for anyone to answer, but it reads, what could be the recommendation to set up a business without or for postponing the creation of a permanent establishment? So it sounds like the spirit of this question is, how can someone invest in Africa without having some type of permanent presence there, if at all, if that's possible?
I think the question was related to South Africans because it's been made by the same one, the same person.
See, that was a great technique, the way you just switched it all the way to South Africa. Very good. Very good. But anyone, we'll open it if South Africa has a comment. Otherwise, I feel like we're at the United Nations right now. Otherwise, Ghana.
Yes. In Ghana, the law allows you to set up an external company. So in essence, it's a branch office of your mother company, wherever you are. We don't recommend that because the lawsuit against the external company in Ghana is a suit against the mother company. So we tend to advise that you set up a separate company in Ghana.
We have feedback from Uganda.
In Uganda, the law or the policy allows you to establish a branch of your foreign company without having a permanent establishment in Uganda. For example, most of the banks are foreign-owned, and so many international companies have majority shareholders in these companies, but they are not stationed in Uganda. So whereas the law allows and the practice is you can invest in Uganda without having an actual presence in Uganda.
Okay, so if the question was targeted from South Africa, Shawn, maybe you can comment on that.
I agree with my colleagues. The best preferred option on that specific question would be a branch, which is very easy to set up. However, the legal consequences as advised by my Ugandan colleagues, would be the same in South Africa.
For Burundi, you can open a branch in Burundi. The only exception is that a sole proprietorship company cannot open another sole proprietorship company.
In Nigeria, you cannot open a branch. You must incorporate a separate entity for the purposes of to carry on that business. But you're allowed to own the mother companies are allowed to own 100% of shares of this company. You can have a representative office, but it's only for purposes of correspondence. That's all. You cannot do any business with that person. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shitul. I'll talk about Kenya. It's quite possible to have a temporary business in Kenya. You can come in for a few months. You can come in for a few years. There's absolutely no requirement to be permanently based in Kenya. You could have a briefcase operator operating on the ground, or you could operate your business through an agency as well, located in the country.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shitul.
Thank you.
There's a question for Burundi. Horace,
Yes.
what are the major areas of investment in Burundi right now?
For Burundi, the major investment areas, I can say that first it's construction, as we lack many infrastructure like many African countries. That is the major area that I can say. And the second one is food security. That is the second one also. Yeah.
Construction and food security. Thank you very much for that. I want to end with the final question to our Ghanaian participants. We've heard a lot about corruption in Africa, particularly so insofar as it stifles the growth of business. What should an investor look out for? What should an investor look out for? What potential investor look out for? They intend to invest in any potential land risk apart from corruption.
I think the major one will be land acquisition. The land tenure system is not the best. You will have a piece of land with multiple owners. So that's a challenge. Proper due diligence before you invest in that.
Great. So I think that brings us to the end of our doing business in Africa webinar. I think what we'll probably do next time is focus and concentrate on individual African countries one by one, because there's probably so much to cover. But we're hoping that for those of you listening, you have a nice overview. As you can see, the last slide is the slide with all of the individual presenters, their name, contact information. All of them have kindly told me that if you have any questions that come up now or later, to please email them directly, and they would be happy to speak with you offline. In addition, I believe we are recording this webinar, and so you can contact me if you want a recording of it, and we can get that out to you. So on behalf of the entire continent of Africa, but those present at the table, and Paul from Uganda, the co-moderator, we want to thank you very much for your time and attention. And if Mackerel International can be of assistance to you or anyone within your company, our ears and doors are open for you all. Thank you very much, and enjoy your weekend.